Well, after we got that ugly old handle off of there, it still had the original tang on there. It's a little bit, got some weld goobers that we had to get off of there, but it'll straighten up fairly well, and I'll bet we can come up with some fancy nice little handle that kind of matches the air of what it's supposed to be. So now I'm going to take it to the sandblast cabinet. Alright, well, I sandblasted all our parts, got them ready to go. I knocked the real heavy stuff off of the casting marks off. There were some kind of nasty ones there and on the front a little bit, so I just cleaned those up a little bit. I went ahead and fitted these up, and it wasn't as bad as I thought once I got the crap out of there. Why, both those holes were round, but they had a 1/4 inch bolt rather than a 5/16 bolt going through. So I've taken a 5/16 bolt, just rounded the head, relieved it so that it will fit in through the casting. Set in there like that. I'll put brass washers in between, and then a lock nut. We'll adjust that length if we need to. I went ahead and sandblasted off the bolt itself, get all the CAD plating off of it. So that's got a real nice fit. Everything's ready to go back together there. I polished our rods up. Everything's ready to go with the exception of polishing the inside of this to fit over our tube. I marked out the heated base to, I'm going to weld an extension on there, or weld a bigger round on there that will recess down into the heated base. And that way when it sets through the actual casting, this has still got a little bit of crud on it here. Let me get this off here. So when this fits up through the bottom of the casting, the way they normally work is they set in there and then it's recessed up in. What I will do is I will add a little, probably about a 3/16 inch, basically a washer on the bottom of there. So this will set down, recess in, and our washer will set against the bottom of this, and then there'll be a relief in the heated base for that. So that way it'll sit down flush the way it's supposed to, yet I want to relieve this casting, so I kept the integrity of that. So that's ready to do, and I think I'm going to go ahead and order some orange powder coat to match this as close as I can. The rest of the parts will get blued next time I fire up the bluing tank, so I'll finish polishing the rest of the fittings and everything up, and those will be blued. We'll powder coat this up orange. We've got to come up with a handle for on there. Okay, well, we're just going to use the old tube that we had to lap in our casting for the size of our new tube. And what we'll do is we'll just start working some lapping compound down in there. And see if we can't open that up and get something going here. So we're never going to use this tube for anything again except for this right here. I think I might actually want a pair of gloves for this. Alright, well, we finished lapping it. Let's see, I don't know if we can get a good picture of the inside of that, but I'm pretty happy with that. And this is our new tube. Give it just a little bit of lube down inside. And we've got a nice sliding fit there. By the time things get polished up one more time, and I'll blue this tube, and we get everything assembled. If we have to do a little bit of final fitting inside there, that's fine, but that's that's a pretty good fit. I think that'll be just fine. So what I did is I just used the old tube. I lapped it as far back as I could. This tube was out around anyway, so once it wore down on this first section, why it kind of quit cutting just because we ran out of space. So I just extended it out of the chuck a little bit farther where it was a little bit more out around, and went back and finished lapping it right there. So we've got a pretty good fit. I think that'll work just fine when we're all said and done. And for lapping compound, we just use some 120 grit silicone carbide and just mix it with some oil. And for this application, I used some old oil it was a gun oil, but some new fancy gun oil that I never use, don't use for anything else. So I used it as a carrier for the silicone carbide. Okay, we've initially reassembled it again just to make sure everything was going to work. It was a little bit sticky at first, had to grease it up a little bit, but everything seems to work real nice and tight. We'll leave it just the way it is, and I think we're ready to disassemble it and go ahead and start finishing out parts now. I got to get some brass washers to do the fit for that bolt before we get around and re-blue it, and there'll be a little more fitting and polishing on it. And then I'll run the castings back to the sandblaster. I've still got to build a cap for it, but I'm very pleased with that. Looks pretty good. So I got powder coat ordered, so we'll get that in a few days and get it cleaned up, powder coated, the rest of the parts blued, and this project will be done. If you find this interesting, why hit that subscribe button, give me a thumbs up, and if you hit the bell notification, you'll know when I put out a new video. If you've got any comments, suggestions, complaints, leave them in the comments section below. And thanks for taking the time to watch.